If someone handed you $1 million tomorrow, how long would you keep it? Not how long would you want to keep it? How long would you actually keep it? Because the research gives a very specific answer, and for most men, it is not what they expect. Studies tracking lottery winners across multiple countries found the same pattern every time. Within 3 to 5 years, the majority had returned to the financial position they were in before the money arrived. Not because they were careless, not because they were unlucky, not because life handed them a series of unusual misfortunes, because something inside them had a different idea about how much they were allowed to have. The Millionaire Next Door research found the same pattern running in the opposite direction. Men who built wealth slowly and kept it shared one trait that had nothing to do with intelligence, education, or opportunity. They had a different internal answer to the same question. What is the highest amount of wealth I am allowed to hold? That question is the most important financial question a man can ask himself, and almost no one asks it. You already know some version of this story. You had a good month, more came in than usual, and something in you relaxed for a moment, and then something else happened. An unexpected bill, a deal that needed more investment, a situation that seemed to absorb exactly what had arrived, and the account went back to where it normally sits. You told yourself it was circumstance, bad timing, just how things go. But here is what is worth examining. Has this happened more than once? Has money come in above your normal level and found its way back out more than once? Not because you spent it recklessly, but because something in your life expanded to meet it and then contract with it. Most men read that and think, yes, but my situation is different. The expenses were real, the circumstances were real. And they are right, the circumstances were real. The question is not whether the circumstances were real. The question is why those specific circumstances appeared at that specific time. Why the leak always matches the level. Why the correction always brings the number back to the same floor. Think about the last time something above your normal level arrived. A bigger deal, a higher paying client, an unexpected windfall of any kind. And think about how long it stayed, not where it went. How long it stayed before something came to claim it. That duration is a measurement of your upper limit. Nothing more and nothing less. This is not about blame. This is about understanding the mechanism, because the mechanism runs whether you understand it or not. The only difference understanding makes is whether you are able to change it. There is a concept in psychology called the upper limit problem. The idea is simple. Every man has an internal ceiling on how much good he is allowed to experience before the subconscious system activates to bring him back down. Not a ceiling on how hard he works, not a ceiling on how much he wants, a ceiling on how much he is allowed to have. The subconscious does not ask whether you deserve more. It asks whether more is consistent with the image it holds of who you are. If more is consistent, the system supports it. It helps you find the opportunities, make the decisions, hold the relationships that sustain the new level. If more is not consistent, the system corrects, quietly, automatically, through decisions that feel reasonable in the moment, through circumstances that seem like bad luck, through 100 small moves that bring the number back inside the boundary. The Thomas Stanley and William Danko research behind The Millionaire Next Door tracked the actual financial behavior of wealthy Americans over decades. What they found was not what most people expect. The men who built and held wealth were not the highest earners. They were not the most educated or the most talented or the most connected. They were the men whose internal image of themselves was consistent with holding wealth, who did not experience an upper limit correction when the number rose, who did not unconsciously organize their lives to leak money back out when it arrived above a certain level. The wealth held because the identity could hold it. Now apply this to the lottery winners. They did not go broke because they were irresponsible. Many of them had detailed plans for the money, investments, property, family funds. They went broke because the plans were made by the conscious mind. And the subconscious had a different plan entirely. The subconscious plan was simple. Return to the level that feels like you. This is the thermostat, not just a set point at the bottom that keeps you from falling too far. A set point at the top that keeps you from rising too high. Both limits, both real, both invisible until you know to look for them. And both installed long before you had any say in the matter. The men who built the largest fortunes in history were not immune to this mechanism. They understood it, and they worked with it deliberately. Napoleon Hill. Hill spent 20 years studying the psychology of more than 500 of the most successful men in America. Industrialists, financiers, inventors, leaders. He did not set out to write a self-help book. He set out to answer a single question. What is the actual mechanism behind sustained wealth creation? What he found was not strategy or work ethic or education. What he found was that every man who built lasting wealth had first built a clear, fixed internal image of himself as a man who held wealth, not hoped for it, not worked toward it, held it in the present tense, in the identity. He documented man after man who had gone broke, sometimes multiple times, and returned to wealth. Not because the strategy changed, because the identity had been rebuilt strong enough to hold the level again. Hill called it the definite chief aim, the fixed internal image from which every action, every decision and every response to circumstance is organized. The image functions as the upper limit. Set it high enough, with enough emotional certainty, and the subconscious stops correcting downward. It starts defending the new level instead. Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie arrived in America with nothing, the son of a weaver. No capital, no connections, no education beyond the basics. By the time he sold Carnegie Steel in 1901, the deal was worth $480 million. Adjusted for today, that is approximately $310 billion. But what matters for this conversation is not the final number. It is a documented account from his early life that reveals exactly how the upper limit operates and how it can be moved. As a young man, long before wealth was a realistic possibility, Carnegie made a deliberate decision to remove the word impossible from his internal vocabulary when it applied to money. Not as an affirmation, not as wishful thinking, as a discipline. Every time the subconscious produced a correction in a thought, a feeling, a reflex that said this is above your level, he identified it, named it, and refused to let it stand unexamined. He was not suppressing the upper limit mechanism. He was locating it and then deliberately raising it, one identified belief at a time, one refused correction at a time. By the time the wealth arrived, the subconscious had been prepared to hold it. Two men both understood the same thing. The upper limit is not fixed, it is a belief, and beliefs can be examined, located, and moved. So how do you locate your own upper limit? Not theoretically, in your actual life. Right now, the upper limit always announces itself through emotion, not through logic, through feeling. When an opportunity appears that is above your current level, a deal that is bigger than you are used to, a connection that is more influential than you normally access, an offer that is higher than your standard rate, something in you responds before the conscious mind has assessed it. That response is the upper limit speaking. It might feel like excitement that turns quickly into doubt, like a reason why this particular opportunity is different from what it seems, like a sudden awareness of all the ways it could go wrong. The content of the thought is irrelevant. The timing is what matters. If the doubt appears immediately after the opportunity, before any real assessment has been made, you are not being cautious. You are hitting your ceiling. Here's the practice Carnegie was using without naming it. When the upper limit response appears, you do not fight it. You examine it. You ask, is this a real assessment of a real risk? Or is this the subconscious returning me to a familiar level? The distinction is always available if you look for it. Real risk is specific and addressable. The upper limit response is vague, reflexive, and appears at the same emotional intensity regardless of the actual scale of the danger. You name it. You refuse to let it stand as the final word, and you act from the real assessment instead. Repeat this enough times and the subconscious recalibrates. The ceiling rises, not all at once, one identified correction at a time. And here is what changes when the upper limit moves. The windfalls stop disappearing. Not because the circumstances change, because the subconscious stops organizing circumstances to drain the excess. The opportunity arrives above your previous level, and something in you recognizes it instead of deflecting it. The decision that would have felt reckless before feels clear. The connection that would have felt out of reach before feels appropriate. The system that was once your ceiling becomes your floor. Imagine a year from now. Something arrives above your current level. A deal, an opportunity, an offer. And instead of the familiar contraction, instead of the doubt that appears before the assessment, something different happens. You stay open. You examine it clearly. You act from what you actually see, rather than from what the ceiling tells you to feel. And the level holds, because the man holding it has been prepared to hold it. The lottery winners did not fail because money is dangerous. They failed because the money arrived above the level the subconscious was prepared to defend. And the subconscious did exactly what it was built to do. It returned the man to the level it recognized as his. Hill documented it across 500 men. Carnegie lived it and left a record of exactly how he moved the ceiling. Both understood the same thing. Wealth does not flow to the man with the best strategy. It flows to the man whose subconscious has been prepared to receive and hold it. The question is not how to make more money. The question is how much you are built to hold. Build the man first. The money follows the container.